Evening, we're studying the Gita. We're in chapter, well, I've forgotten the chapter number, but it's the Yoga of Mysticism. Is it 8 or 9? I don't recall. In any event, before we start, I want to hark back to chapter 3, where Krishna talks about offering everything to the divine presence, to him. And he now refers to this in the Yoga of Mysticism, but somewhat differently, as we'll see. Whatever a man gives me in true devotion, fruit or water, a leaf of flower, I will accept it. That gift is love, his heart's dedication. Whatever your action, food or worship, whatever the gift that you give to another, whatever you vow to the work of the Spirit, O son of Kunti, lay these also as offerings before me. So notice the word whatever. Whatever your action, this is almost verbatim from chapter 3. Whatever your action, food or worship, whatever the gift that you give to another, whatever you vow to the work of the Spirit, O son of Kunti. Now, as we remember, Arjuna is every person, the son of woman. That's what he means by O son of Kunti. So, son or daughter of woman, lay these also as offerings before me. So this is the way to do what Swami Sridharananda calls divinize your life, or what Swami Prabhavananda called giving everything a Godward turn. Give everything a Godward turn. Whatever your action, whatever your offering, whatever you do, give it a Godward turn and divinize it, thereby divinize it. And what is Krishna's promise? Then you will free yourself from both the good and the evil effects of your actions. Let's not forget that even our good karma will result in rebirth. It isn't just bad karma that results in, it's both good and evil, and the mixture of the two that results in the impetus toward rebirth. Then you will be free, thus you will be free from both the good and evil effects of your actions. Offer up everything to me. Once again, he repeats it. And instead of saying whatever, he says everything. Offer up everything to me. If your heart is united with me, if your heart, in other words, if you're offering everything to the divine, that this is your way of being, if you abide in this consciousness, when you are united with me, you will be set free from the karma. You will be set free from karma, even in this life, and come to me at the last, rather than be reborn. My face is equal to all creation. Let's really internalize that. There's not one of us who is accepted from this. By that I mean there is an exception to this. My face is equal to all creation. Leaving no one, loving no one, not hating any. Now, that's the way this situation is a priori. My face is equal to all creation, loving no one, nor hating any. Nevertheless, my devotees dwell within me always. I also show forth and am seen within them. So the situation as it is created, loving no one, hating no one, an equal face to everyone. So nevertheless, my devotees dwell within me always. I also show forth and am seen within them. When you are abiding in this way that Krishna discusses, that he outlines here, you become a kind of radiant. Why? Because that Krishna spirit, that Krishna being, is alive within you, no longer asleep. It's no longer asleep. It is awake. And then here comes this huge promise. Though a man be soiled with the sins of a lifetime, let him but love me, rightly resolved, in utter devotion. I see no sinner. That man is holy. Holiness soon shall refashion his nature to peace eternal. O son of Kunti, of this be certain, the man that loves me, he shall not perish. Now, this is one of the very much quoted promises of the Gita. When you make up your mind to turn your face inward and offer everything to that divine being that is awakening within you, though a man or woman be soiled with the sins of a lifetime, let that person but love me, rightly resolved in utter devotion. I see no sinner. Now, that means that there is no karma in the way of your being. I see no sinner. That's the karma. That man is holy. Holiness soon shall refashion his nature to peace eternal. O son of Kunti, he again repeats this phrase that means son or daughter of woman. Of this be certain, the one that loves me shall not perish. And then we have to consider when this was spoken, because this will seem shocking to us. Even those who belong to the lower castes, women, Vaishvas, and Shudras, in those days, the patriarchy was so strong. And of course, it hasn't lessened much, but it was so strong that women were seen in this way. I want to point out how much Sri Ramakrishna's advent and Vivekananda's message to us here in the West completely frees everyone, the lower castes and women, from this opprobrium, from this shadow. Sri Ramakrishna's other half was Sri Sharada Devi. And she is, if you've been following along on the Tuesday night class, she did the heavy lifting. And Swami Vivekananda said it was women who would carry this forward, this modern Vedanta, this Vedanta of Sri Ramakrishna, that it was women who would carry it forward. And he said, a bird cannot fly on one wing. Both wings must be healthy for the bird to fly. And so he was absolutely adamant that there be equality. But even in Krishna's time, he's saying, even those who belong to the lower castes, women, Vaishvas, and Shudras too, can reach the highest spiritual realization if they will take refuge in me. So before we go on, is there any question or doubt or comment that you'd like to raise? Because we're about to go on to a different aspect.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, Aaron.
So, do you think that it's possible when the divine sees us, they don't see a sinner at all, but possibly our true nature, if that makes any sense?
They see both, but they don't condemn anything. This is the testimony of the saints. How can anything I have made be anything less than perfect? He says to Saint Teresa of Avila. How can anything my hands have made be anything less than perfect? So the divine being sees it all. It's us who are limited in our perceptions. But even that, as Saint Teresa says, only in us, only in human beings, is God so confused that he asks questions. So no reason not to ask the questions. But it is our innate divinity that is the truth of our being. And as Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna pointed out, the expression of that as our humanness is a lesser truth. Sri Ramakrishna said, if you wish to get the true weight of a fruit, you cannot just weigh the flesh of the fruit. You must also weigh the rind and the seeds. Now, there's very deep meaning to that I don't want to go into right now, about having to do with the gunas and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that all of it is known, loved, and, well, loved, accepted in the sense that Krishna spoke about earlier. Loving none, hating none, but accepting, accepting everyone and everything. Does that answer it, Aaron?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Swayam.
So this offering everything to God, sometimes when some emotion that is not, in the sattvic realm, we offer, but then if we repeatedly, it takes time to reset. So if we continue to offer, at what point would that be then hypocritical versus
No, it's as long as you're offering it sincerely, it's never hypocritical. As Vivekananda said, we fall 1,000 times, we rise 1,001 times. So it's not a question of it being hypocritical. If you were a Catholic and you kept confessing to the same sin over and over, your penance would increase. That is to say, you would be asked to say more Hail Marys and more Our Fathers and spend more time in heartfelt prayer so as to correct this tendency, because the repetition of the Lord's name or Mother's name purifies us, as we have heard. So if you keep making the same mistake over and over, well, the thing to do is work harder, not at so much at correcting the mistake, but at correcting what it is that makes the mistake. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you, Radha Shankara.
Okay. Anyone else?
When Krishna says, "Of this be certain, the man that loves me, he shall not perish." We all die eventually. Does that?
He means deathless. He means deathless. You become deathless in your awareness. Yes, the body dies, but that's not you, Brahmadas. That has, in a sense, the body is no more you than your automobile is you. It's just a reflection of the attributes that created you. So when he says deathless, when he means will not perish, it's the same thing that Jesus is saying, is he who drinks from my mouth shall not taste death. It doesn't mean the body won't die. The body, in a sense, is an incidental thing. We take it so seriously. And of course, it requires us to do things like get medical treatment and so on and so forth if we're going to soldier on. But nevertheless, it's just that's in the same sense that you would take your car to a mechanic. If your car developed, if the red light on the dashboard started blinking, check engine light as they call it, or something like that, you would take your car to a mechanic and have it fixed. So it's shall not perish means become immortal, deathless, eternal, which is your nature. But it's just that most of us don't have any real inkling of it, don't have any real realization of it. Very good question, Brahmadas. Anyone else?
I have a comment.
Yes, dear.
Since you hit this part of the Gita and your commentary on it, as far as the when Krishna says even the lower castes and even women, and your commentary about Sri Ramakrishna and especially Vivekananda, saying that women will lead this movement forward, and I see it in their teachings, especially Vivekananda, and especially the work he did, especially in the West. So the teachings are there. They were carrying it forward, or he was carrying it forward. And yet since that time, since he's been gone and Holy Mother's been gone, the Ramakrishna order does not seem to have carried it forward. And I don't mean to be just being, getting into politics of, the organization, but I think it's important It's something that as a Westerner and as a woman, it's something that bothers me.
Yes, of course. And it should bother you, and you should radiate your concern about it, and that will have its effect in time. It's early days as far as these great ones are concerned. As Vivekananda said, I have given them enough for 1,500 years, giving us some little hint about how long it would take for one thing to become another, for his work no longer to be necessary in the way that it is now. So yes, we should continue that sense of the actuality right now not matching the promises made by Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Vivekananda, and Brahmananda for that matter. You'll find what I'm talking about Brahmananda in The Eternal Companion, the book, The Eternal Companion. The patriarchy is ending. It's a slow process. There's a book by a woman named Hannah Rosin, R-O-S-I-N, called The End of Men and the Rise of Women. It doesn't mean that there won't be any more men. It just means the end of the patriarchy, which she identifies as being 200,000 years old. Now, I won't go into why she says that or why she says what she says. But if you read that book, you will be impressed. She's a very good researcher, a very good reporter, and a very good writer. Hannah, R-O-S-I-N. You can find summaries of her work as TED Talks and also on YouTube, delivered to some scholarly organization in the United Kingdom. So I know how oppressive it is to live in this time when the dark lords of the patriarchy are still ruling. It is oppressive to women. And so keep the pressure on. And by that I mean keep your heart centered on, Lord, keep this promise. And as Swami Prabhavananda says, our prayers do have effects. Thanks for bringing that up, Cindy. That's just exactly what it is.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I don't know much about what happens at the organizational level, but due to outreach of technology, lately I've been coming across talks by Pravarajika, I think Divyananda Prana.
Mm-hmm.
He is getting a lot of following.
Yes.
And I have also seen some panel discussions where there are, may not be Pravrajikas, but other in other ways, they are involved in maybe the Vivekananda Kendra or schools that the females are given a voice on the panels.
Good, good, good. Well, yes, the Sarda Mat, the organization that was finally formed in 1954 in Mother's name, Sharda Mat, which is located right next to the Dakshineshwar temple in Calcutta, near Calcutta. It is becoming more and more prominent, but they do not push themselves forward. They just do their work. And as you say, now with technology, really quite, I have a collection of half a dozen books here that you can borrow, Swayam, there by Pravarajika Vivekaprana, who was one of the senior nuns. I think she's older now and has stopped traveling and maybe even stopped writing. But if you want to have a look at those books, they're very eloquent on spiritual life and women's place in that spiritual life.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else? Okay, it's just 8:30, so we've got plenty of time. We'll go right ahead. So he talks about these lower castes, and then he says, Krishna says, need I tell you then that this is also true of the holy Brahmins and pious philosopher kings? You find yourself, speaking now again directly to Arjuna, you find yourself in this transient, joyless world. Turn from it and take your delight in me. Now, as Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within. If the kingdom is within, the king is within. So this is what he means. Turn from it and take your delight in me. Find me in your heart. As Swami Prabhavananda said, the chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. So that's what he means. Turn from the world, this joyless, transient world. Turn from it and take your delight in me. And you'll find that there is true delight there, beyond your imagination, beyond your imagination. Fill your heart and mind with me, adore me, make all your acts and offerings to me, bow down to me in self-surrender. Now, this is quite a little litany of spiritual practice. Fill your heart and mind with me. In other words, study Krishna, study Krishna's teachings, study his life, adore me. This is the adorable one. This is the self in all its glory. Adore me. Make all your acts and offerings to me. Bow down to me in self-surrender. Now that's what it means to turn yourself within and find the delight there. You can only know what's meant by the word delight when you actually practice these things. There is tangible delight. You feel it in your body, it fills your mind, and overflows your heart. Not in the first week, not in the first month, but if you persist for 2 or 3 years in some approximation of this, and let's go back to Swayam's comment about is it hypocrisy if I keep trying to do it, but somehow I keep finding myself also doing other things? No, it's not hypocrisy. We fall 1,000 times, we rise 1,001 times. Just keep at it. If you set your heart upon me thus, and take me for your ideal above all others, you will come into my being. And you can only understand the meaning of those words when you've done what he says. If you set your heart upon me thus, that little litany of spiritual practice, if you set your heart upon me thus, and take me for your ideal above all others. In other words, the world, anything of the world, anything out there that seems to be out there, you relegate to its proper position. How much of your attention does it deserve, as opposed to how much your adoration, your self-surrender to Krishna, or to whatever else, whatever other form of the divine is your chosen ideal. As he pointed out earlier in the Gita, they're all him. He is all of them, they are all him. So that's the end of that chapter. And I want to point out to you, those of you who are conversant with or interested in numerology, that it is not coincident that that is the 9th chapter. 9 is a very special number in the Sanatana Dharma conception. 9 is the perfect number. You say your mantra 108 times. That adds up to 9. You chant the name of the Lord 1,008 times. That adds to 9. So this chapter on mysticism, as Krishna says in the beginning, I'm now going to give you the highest truth, the highest truth. So now we're going to go on to a very different subject. And before we do, and before we leave that behind, chapter 9, is there any other comment or question or a concern that you'd like to raise?
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
So in this journey of realization, of self-realization, I've kind of grown to a point where it's been pretty difficult to find like lasting or enjoyment rather out of even the things that seem enjoyable, have seemed enjoyable in my life before.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was just journaling, because I do a lot of journaling. I was just journaling right before this class about it, just kind of finding myself kind of just waiting for like the I call them intuitive hits, for the intuitive hits to just give me directions on what I should be doing. Like just a lot of like staring instead of just kind of going on with my day, like painting or whatever. But even in those things, it's like trying to find, I guess, the essence of it, just on my own has been kind of dull. And so when you all mentioned, or when we came across it in the Gita, to devote it to God, and it kind of just came to light. It just kind of like reminded me, and the thing is that I forget sometimes, even in the day, though I know better, I do forget to offer it, and to seek enjoyment in like, to take enjoyment in that way. But it's like I often pray, like I prayed this morning for just a reminder, like reminders to do that. And when I'm mindless, or when I'm thoughtless, when I can't remember on my own, just to remind me to do that, that's the way to.
How beautifully said, V. How beautifully said. Yes, indeed. We forget. We forget in the moment. Why? Because we're very old in our habits. Our coping mechanisms, our way of being in the world, it's old. And so it kicks in just automatically, and then we catch ourselves. Oh, this is why Sri Krishna is saying, as you start anything, if you can remember, as you start anything, just offer it to me. You mentioned painting, offer that to him. But it goes as simply as this, that when you get up in the morning, you offer the entire day. You just simply sit on the edge of your bed saying, here I am again, Lord, here you are again. I offer this entire day and all it contains to you. And then you can enumerate whatever you like, whatever fills your day that you wish to particularly highlight. That's good because it keeps it in your focus. But then when you take a bath, offer the bath. When you have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is you have, offer that. When you have your breakfast, offer that. Just remember, and let me repeat, there is delight in this. You find the delight when you find that there is a correspondence. When Krishna says, I accept it, those are not empty words. You, after you've practiced a while, you feel it. You feel the acceptance. You feel the correspondence, the relationship. And so, very good, V. It was very eloquent the way you said that. And I'm glad you're journaling about it, because that helps you to go back later and see where you were and see how far you've progressed.
Yeah. Thanks, V. It feels nice to know that others are struggling too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is very much related to Swayam's earlier comment also, about if I keep offering the same thing over and over, but then I keep falling away from it, am I being a hypocrite? No. So it's as I said, you might look to the Catholic example. If you have to confess to yourself over and over, I'm doing this over and over, even though it's not my intention, then increase your penance, increase your spiritual practice, because it is that spiritual practice that cleanses us, that moves us forward, and that makes us, and there's a certain automaticness to it. When you do your spiritual practice, particularly the chanting of the name and the glory, as we're going to see in chapter 10, the divine glory. Anything else? Thank you, V. And thanks to the others who commented, who chimed in. Anyone else?
One thing that we kind of glossed over, but it hit me pretty hard, was when Krishna says, you find yourself in this transient, joyless world.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty heavy statement to make. That's saying this world isn't a happy place, and I know
Well, isn't that our experience?
that is our experience. We want to. Everybody seems to want to be happy, but it seems like nobody really is.
Yes, Brahmadas. We want to be happy, and we look. As long as we're looking outward, we're looking in all the wrong places. Not that it's bad and wrong. It's just errant. That's what's meant by sin. Errant, missing the mark.
Errant.
So it's like if you write a computer program and you don't write the proper instructions, you're not going to get the proper result. So
I've done that.
Yes, I'm sure every programmer has. So this is, we have to learn the instructions and how to write the instructions for ourselves. Each one of us is unique, gloriously unique, very creative. And so let that creativity inform how you do this. I made some suggestions about how to start your day and this and that and the other thing. Let your own heart, let your own creativity find its proper way. There is no dogma here, none. There is no dogma, no prescribed ritual. I only mentioned the Catholics because it is such an elegant system for those who follow it with heartfelt devotion. Anything else?
This is Ashley, and I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who has made comments tonight, because I've been feeling a little bit frustrated with my practice as well. The falling 1,000 times and getting up 1,001. Sometimes in the process, it can be a little daunting, and I think I've been feeling that same type of resistance to remembering my practice with regularity. We get busy doing the things that we have to do, or birthdays come up, or whatever happens that throws us off our schedule. So either I can't attend class, or I can't, I don't take the time to do my spiritual practice. And I notice a big difference in my outlook, in my just kind of like my devotional level and my awareness level. And I think that sometimes I know how much it helps me to practice. And then when I don't and I feel worse, I feel a little frustrated with myself because I think, oh gosh, I know better. But then, you know, life is always kind of going on. And I guess I need to be flexible in the fact that I'm not always going to be doing it as well every day.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. And thank you for commenting on how welcome it is to have this conversation among the congregation. Yes, this is what it means to study together the art of spirituality. This is not top down. This is directly straight across. And I think everyone understood from their heart what you meant about, you know, that some days it just goes away from you. And there was a wonderful example by Yehudi Menuhin, who is a great, great violinist. And he was asked why he practiced every day so faithfully, why he practiced so many hours every day. And he said, well, if I don't practice for one day, I can tell. If I don't practice for 2 days, the critics can tell. If I don't practice for 3 days, everyone can tell. So that's it. We feel it.
I love that.
Isn't that good? Yeah. And you can actually, there's actually a YouTube little clip of him saying that if you want to look it up.
Thank you.
And Pablo Casals, the great cellist, was in his 80s and still practicing 6 to 8 hours a day. And someone asked him, Maestro, why at your age, with your accomplishments, why are you practicing 6 to 8 hours a day? And he said, well, you know, I think I'm beginning to see a little improvement. Isn't that sweet? I mean, that there we are, you know, these great ones who excel in any field know that daily practice is required.
And what was the cellist's name?
Pablo Casals, Casals, Pablo Casals. You know, I think I'm beginning. Yes.
Kind of wanted to add to that. Having struggles daily like everybody else. I think what helps me is when you repeat often, slowly but slowly, my dears, and 2 to 3 years, and when you read up on it, it's not easy. I mean, and anything worth having takes a ton of work, and I think with the threat of like imminent hell taken off the table, it gives you space to kind of relax. And you also talk about you can't make yourself be in these spaces. You have to work yourself into these spaces, and it gives you time to take a little deep breath and forgive yourself.
Yes.
Because if you don't forgive yourself, I feel like when I don't forgive myself, I take some steps back.
Well, exactly. When we beat ourselves up for what we don't do, all we're doing is making ourselves feel smaller and making it that much harder to do. No, say, I am that glorious divine being, and I will manifest that. I will manifest that. And so I didn't today. Very well, I didn't. That's over and done with. Now what? What shall I do now? What deserves my attention in this moment? You're absolutely right, Keith. We must not beat ourselves up. It just is not productive.
And I take little small things that happen, like when I'm present in a moment, when I realize something about myself, as a sign that at least I'm making progress.
Absolutely. And remember, we always can look back over the last months, the last days, but particularly the last months. And remember Swami Swahananda's phrase, the only true measure of spiritual progress is change in behavior. The only true measure of spiritual progress is change in behavior. So if we look back a few months, we say, yeah, I'm not behaving the same way I was a few months ago or a year ago. That's progress. And it is slow. We are old beings with deep, deep, deep samskaras and habits. So, as Patanjali says, you replace the lower samskaras with higher samskaras. And you replace then those later, you replace those higher samskaras with yet higher samskaras. And that's why he wrote that book, the Yoga Sutra. And we heard the other day, so beautifully expounded by Ryan New Collins, that it took even a mind as great as Nisargadatta Maharaj. It took him 3 years to finally internalize his guru's instructions and act on them every day and achieve the result. Now, you know, you got to think, this is a guy who, when he was in his more worldly mode, had 40 shops, 40 beedi shops throughout Mumbai, you know, big family, lots going on. This was a very disciplined, capable mind. You know, he was able to handle a lot. And then he decided, whoa, wait a minute. My guru says this, I'm doing that. I think I'll do what my guru says. And so he ends up with one shop, enough to sustain his family. And you can tell how he was the leader, because as soon as he stopped leading that 40 shops or organization, well, the family fouled it up and lost them all. I mean, Ryan didn't go into that, but that's the facts. You know, the family just was, you know, like any family, quarrelsome and this and that. And so they ended up losing 39 of the 40 shops. But that one was all he needed. And so that was, you know, but even such a mind, it took him 3 years of faithfully following his guru's instructions. She did give us a very nice description of how that went. Anything else before we go on?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I would like to share that I'm so glad that I'm now preparing for my spirituality. Like, it seems like those 3 years, not exactly 3, but maybe more or less. But I am preparing towards consolidating my life and simplifying, and seems like I am making headway.
Very good, Amrapali. You know, that's, you know, when you're simplifying, this is change in behavior. When you're no longer spending time on things that you used to spend time on and spending it on spiritual pursuits, this is change.
I'm still overwhelmed sometimes because I've sold the house and I've made 2 storage room into 1, things like that. But I am trying to be kind to myself and said, okay, you are taking on a lot now, so something gives, and generally the spiritual practices that is not getting done. But yeah, I'm working on it.
Well, the thing we have to ask ourselves over and over, and congratulations for all of your doing. Wonderful. Take great pride in it. The thing we have
Swami
to ask
Prabha, I want to thank Swami Prabha also to keep me on track. You know, she keeps reminding me, okay, it's a class. Come along.
It's good that you have such a sweet friend and such a dedicated friend. But the thing, you know, ultimately it's your responsibility. And,
yes.
And this is the question for us to ask our mind. What deserves my attention? If this is a joyless and transient world, am I going to take that seriously? And does then that joyless, transient world deserve much of my attention? Only as much as it must have to fulfill my duties and be good to myself and others, then we take the rest of that time and apply it as best we can to our spiritual practices. But is it easy? No, it's not easy. As Krishna says, out of 1,000, one will seek me. And how many are we here this evening? About a dozen, a little more. So these are the people who are following in the great wake that was left by Sri Krishna 5,000 years later, or however long it was, 2,500 to 5,000 years later. His teachings are still being studied and still making an effect in people's lives. What a remarkable thing. What a remarkable thing. What a giant wake to have created in the world, that we can surf that, the wave of that wake after all these centuries. Anything else? Okay, we'll start then chapter 10. Chapter 10, for those of you who are oriented to numerology, means a new beginning. 10 adds to 1, a new beginning. And it's titled, very aptly, Divine Glory. Sri Krishna, once more, warrior, hear this highest word of my wisdom. Wishing your welfare, to you I teach it. Remember, it's all of us. After all these years, it's come down to us. Arjuna is us, and we are Arjuna. Once more, warrior, hear this highest word of my wisdom. Wishing your welfare, to you I teach it, since your heart delights in the telling. How shall the mighty seers, how shall the mighty seers or the devas know my beginning? I am the origin. I am the sustainer of seers and devas. Who knows me birthless, never beginning, Lord of the worlds? He alone among mortals is stainless of sin, unvexed by delusion. He's just told us at the end of the last chapter how we attain this state of being stainless of sin, unvexed by illusion. He alone among mortals is stainless of sin. I see no sinner. Unvexed by delusion, holiness itself shall transform you. All that makes man in his many natures, knowledge and power of understanding, unclouded by error, truth, forbearance, calm of spirit, control of senses, happiness, sorrow, birth and destruction, what fears, what is fearless, what harms no creature, the mind unshaken, the heart contented, the will austere, the hand of the giver, fame and honor, and in fame and honor and infamy also. It is by me only that these are allotted. So once again, Krishna has given us one of these catalogs. I won't repeat it, but please go read it over again for yourself. This catalog, all of these things, it is by me only that these are allotted. In other words, Krishna is the doer. His instruments are the gunas. Forth from my thought came the 7 stages, the ancient 4 And at last, the Manus. These are the foundations of the creation that we experience. The seven sages are the seven pillars of the universe. The ancient four are the seers who gave us the Vedas. And the Manus, finally, the Manus are the lawgivers. They're the ones who created the society that was degenerating and disintegrating at the time that Krishna came into the world, which was at the end of the Bronze Age and before the beginning of the Iron Age. Thus I gave birth to the first begetters of earth's children. This is his little summary statement about what we think of as Adam and Eve. Thus I gave birth to the first begetters of all earth's children. Who truly knows me in manifold being, everywhere present and all prevailing, dwells in my yoga, that shall not be shaken, of this be certain. So once again, there's this reassurance. Who truly knows me in manifold being, everywhere present and all prevailing, dwells in my yoga. Yoga meaning both union and detachment, union with the higher, detachment from the lower, dwells in my yoga, that shall not be shaken, of this be certain. So it's 9:01. I'm going to leave it there. If there are any last comments or questions, they're most welcome. Please, anything you'd like to say, add, comment, question. Okay. We'll just wind it up with that, and we'll start next week with I am where all things began. Okay. Satoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutangamaya, Abir Moiti. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, and let this be the prayer of our hearts, all of us. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from thy lesser truth to thy highest truth. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all joyous and suffering beings everywhere. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. And let's just remember all of these promises made by such as Krishna and Jesus. Ask and ye shall receive. Ask and ye shall receive. So good night, everyone, Anyone, anything, any final comment or question?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I just wanted to again say thank you
Mhm.
from the bottom of my heart, and thanks to everybody who comes here. Many times I start the class as always with some conflict or the other that goes on, but by the time I leave the class, my head is clear. I'm ready to do the practice with a redoubled vigor. So
Excellent.
thank you.
Excellent.
So
I
true.
agree. Thank you too.
Thank you.
Well, that's what it means to study together the art of spirituality. We lend one another our strength. We lend one another our love and our goodwill. And of course, in lending it, it's paid back in full. So, Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. Go in Mother's loving and protecting embrace. And see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.